Hello, my name's Kingsley Singleton and welcome to this Photoshop video lesson from Digital Photo, the UK's best-selling photography and imaging magazine. It might sound surprising, but one of the greatest things that Photoshop can bring to your photography is subtlety. Yes, dramatic, wide-ranging manipulations are the ones that get all the attention, but in many ways it's the subtle use of powerful tools like layers and blending modes that can really advance your picture taking. Take this still life scene for example. As a single shot, lit from above by a simple room light, it lacks any drama. It's flat and totally without impact. But by lighting different parts of the scene independently, and then blending them together, in Photoshop we can create something much more exciting. As you'll see in this month's magazine, each one of the pictures we've combined here was shot from an identical point of view, and that means they'll blend together perfectly, giving you the freedom to light a still life shot like this in absolutely any way you like. In this tutorial, we'll be using the lighten blending mode that allows those pixels on a layer that are brighter than those below to show through along with any other bright pixels beneath. So, say for instance we're happy with the rim lighting on our subject here, but then we want to cast some on its face as well. All we have to do is switch on the next layer, and it's like we're turning on another light. The real advantage of this is that it allows you to build up a complex lighting arrangement using just a single desk lamp, or, as we've done here, a torch. Okay, let's see how it's done, and I'll just first close down our finished example picture there. And then I'm going to open up the 7 shots I've chosen from my still life shoot just by coming up to File, down to Open, and just highlighting them all there in the window, clicking Open. And they'll appear on screen, ready to be worked on. Now these images are available to practice on, they're on this month's cover CD, but if you've had a go at the technique yourself, following the instructions in the magazine, you'll probably find yourself shooting dozens and dozens of pictures. Before you open them up into Photoshop then, try to streamline your selection, as if you've got too many pictures making up your shot, and therefore a lot of different layers, it can get a bit confusing. So the first thing we need to do before we start combining our images is make sure we can see them all on screen at the same time. Sometimes in Photoshop you can only see one image at a time, but to come out of that viewing mode, just come up to Window, down to Arrange, and pick Cascade. That'll pop all our shots into order there, and we can go about the process of creating our dramatically lit still life. What I'm going to do first is just minimize the last few of these shots so that we've just got bear2.jpg and bear1.jpg on screen. And as you can see, just kind of looking at them side by side, they've been lit in quite a different way. This one here, bear1, we've gone for a rim lighting effect, and on the other one we've got a sort of a side lighting approach there. What we need to do is get them into the same document though, so first just make sure you've got the Move tool selected in the toolbox. Then with the bear2.jpg window active, hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, click within that window, and then drag your pointer over the other window, the bear1.jpg window. Once it's there, and you can see that little plus sign next to your cursor, release the mouse button, and it'll drop in. Once that happens, we can close down Bear2, because we won't be needing that, and then we can start moving our other pictures in the exact same way. So opening up bear3.jpg there, holding down Shift again, clicking and dragging it in, and then just closing down that original shot. Now as I said earlier, of course the more of these shots you've got, the longer this is going to take, and that's one of the good reasons there is for keeping your selection to a minimum. Just the last couple now then, bear6, click and drag, close that one down, and finally bear7, once again just holding down that Shift key on the keyboard, and what that does is it makes sure that the image we're dragging in sits perfectly above the others. All the pixels are in the same place. Now you might be wondering, of course, why that's important. Well, the value of it will become clear when I bring in my Layers palette here, either by coming up to Window and down to Layers there. I'm just going to drag mine in from the side, and in fact I'll just pop into the palette options there and bring up the size of those thumbnails so we can get a better look of what's going on. And now you can see how all of those separate images have been aligned within the same document. from the background layer down here, which was our original bare 1 JPEG, all the way through layers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, which are our other still life pictures. Now what we need to do next, of course, is start blending them together. And this, you'll be glad to hear, is extremely simple. All we need to do is select the layer that we want to start blending, and you'll notice that it gets coloured in blue there once it's been selected. Then come up to where it says normal here within the layers palette, click that downward facing arrow, and then come down the list to where it says lighten. This is the lighten blending mode, and when I give that a click, you'll see that the light pixels on the layer below it, in this case layer 5, show through. And what we're basically doing is we're telling Photoshop to compare each pixel in the image and make a decision about how light or dark it is, and then pick the lighter option to display. That's what allows these lighter pixels on the layer below to show through. And if we continue to move down the layer stack here, down to layer 5, just clicking on that again to select it, and again pick lighten from the blending modes, you'll see this time the face of the clock has shown through. Once again, click on layer 4 and change its blending mode to lighten, and this time you'll see the skeleton in the background appear. Once again, because its pixels are lighter than those darker ones above. So we'll just continue to move down the stack, changing all of those blending modes to lighten. Some of the differences are more subtle than others, until we reach layer 1, and that for the last time is showing through the lighter pixels on the background layer, in this case that rim lighting effect. Okay, so far so good. We can see all of our different pictures, and we can see all of the different lighting setups we used with that single torch. And once again, just by clicking those eye icons off, we can see that the way that they sort of stack up. Just like we're kind of turning on lights as we move through. Now in many cases, you'll be able to leave your blending process at that. But what we're going to do next is just refine the way that these layers are interacting with each other a little more, clearing up some parts of the image that I'm not too happy with, particularly this light trail up here. That one's on layer 5 there in the layers palette, and what we can see at that point is just where the torch that I was using crept into the shot. Very easy to fix though. All we need to do is either erase that part of the image using the eraser tool there in the toolbox, and that's the option that Elements users are going to have to use, or if you're using the full version of Photoshop, just click down here in the layers palette on the add layer mask icon, and for a slightly more controllable method, we're going to paint black into the mask using the paintbrush tool there. Just reduce the size of that a little bit using the left square bracket key on the keyboard. Make sure that black is our foreground color, which you can do by hitting D on the keyboard to set the defaults and then X to switch them round, and then we can just paint over that part of the image. Oh dear, I'm going to have to turn my opacity up to 100% there, otherwise we're just painting in a shade of grey and we're not getting rid of it completely. Just click and paint that part that you don't want away. And there, it's disappeared completely from view. Now, that's a correction, if you like, but we can also subtly enhance the lighting effect using the same method. And in this case, I'm just going to kind of tone down the lighting on the skeleton's legs there. I really never thought I'd say that in a video lesson. But to do it, we're first going to just drop that opacity down again to about 30%. And then with that layer still active, the mask there selected with a box around it, we'll just paint over those areas that we want to darken. Just keep clicking and painting there until they get a little bit dimmer. And then for a slightly more subtle join, we can further drop that opacity down to about 10%. And we'll just bring that down around here, just next to the head of the violin, just sort of softening the join between those areas that we're altering. And this works the same way really in all parts of the image. All you need to do is click on the layer that you want to alter the lighting on. In this case I'm going to click on layer 1, add another layer mask, bring that opacity back up to 100%, and then I'm just going to get rid of this rim lighting on the bear's left hand side just by once again clicking and painting over it. And we can also just paint over the shine on his chest there to get rid of that. And then maybe we just want to make his ears a little bit darker, so we'll click on layer 6 up here at the top of the layers palette, add another layer mask, and then just kind of click and paint over them, just kind of darkening them a little bit as they're getting closer to the top of the image. And equally, a little bit further down on his body there, we've got this other kind of area of shine, and that's existing on layer 2. So we click on that, add another layer mask, and then just paint over those parts we want to remove, just kind of softening the lighting on that part of the subject. And as you can tell from this way of working, it's quite easy to just kind of maneuver around your picture, making very subtle changes to the way that the lighting is affecting each part of it. And if you'd like some more information on layer masking, check out the Photoshop Masterclass video lesson on this month's CD, where you'll find out all about it. As I said earlier, Elements users needn't feel left out because they can use the eraser tool, and I'll just quickly demonstrate that. So say we concentrate on the clock face here, just pick that eraser tool, set its opacity to 100%, and then clicking on the layer with the clock on it, I can just erase parts of that, and only those lighter pixels below will then show through. We'll just go to Edit and down to Step Backwards a couple of times to get rid of those changes. And as you can see, the same effect can be built up that way. But that's us done with our lighting changes now. We're just going to make a few more minor tweaks to the image to improve it a little bit more. And the first of these improvements that I'm going to make is just to correct the lens distortion on the picture. As you can see, the image is kind of bending out a little bit towards the top, and that's just a byproduct of the angle of the camera and the wide angle setting that I used. Quite easy to fix though, and there are two ways that we can do it. We can either first flatten the image by coming up to Layer and down to Flatten Image, so that we're working on a single layer, and then use the Free Transform tool to just kind of bring those edges in. And the way that we do that is just by coming up to Select, down to All, and then picking Edit and coming down to Free Transform. And what happens then is that we get these corner handles appear around our selected area, and what I'm going to do is just hold down the Control key and the Shift key on the keyboard and just kind of drag those in just like that, just kind of straightening everything up until we get something just about like that. And then we can either click the tick up here in the options bar, or we can double click within the marquee, or we can just hit return on the keyboard. Once we've done that, we just need to go to select and down to deselect to get rid of those marching ants. But as I said, there is another method of doing it, and it's a little bit more kind of user friendly because it means that you can keep all of the layers active on your image. So let's just come up to the edit menu here again and step backwards a few times until we get our full complement of layers back. There they are. And then what I'm going to do is click on the background layer, hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, and then click on the top layer up there in the layers palette. And there we see that all our layers are now selected. They're all coloured in blue. And then I'm going to group them together using this chain icon, the link layers icon, down there at the foot of the palette. Give that a click. A small chain link will appear next to all the layers showing they've been linked. And then, just as we did before, I'll just drag that off to the side for a moment. I'm just going to come up to Select, down to All, then Edit, down to Free Transform. And if you're getting a warning there, just click OK. Then come down to the background layer, hold down the Alt key and double click on that. And then we'll be able to highlight all our layers again, just as we did before. Come back up to the Edit menu, down to Free Transform, and now, exactly as we did on that single merged layer, just hold down the Control key, the Shift key on the keyboard, and drag those corner handles in, just straightening everything up there. You might discover that when you do this, it sort of gives the image a slightly stretched look. If that happens, just kind of drag that top center handle down a little bit, and you should be able to return everything to its normal height. As you can see there, when I did that, all of those layers have been transformed identically at the same time. They've all been distorted in the same way. So when I click the tick up there in the options bar, the transformation that we've used will be applied to all of them. And that's quite a handy way of doing it if you want to make further refinements between the layers, because all of those pixels have been transformed in the same way, and it means that you can erase or layer mask between them just as you did before. It can be a little bit heavy on the old processor though. As you can see, this operation is taking some time, so in some respects the flattening route can be a little bit better. But as I say, this just gives you a little bit more flexibility to return to any of the parts of the image that you weren't quite happy with. Okay, so that's everything kind of nicely straightened up. What we're going to do now is just fill in this blank area around the side that's been created by our transformation, and to do that we're just going to come up to Layer, down to New and pick Layer, just hit OK when the dialog box appears there, and then I'm just going to use the paintbrush tool, nice large brush with a soft edge there, and then I'm just going to paint black into those areas where we can see the checkerboard effect. And if we do this in quite a neat way, we can sort of hem in the kind of subjects there, creating a bit of a vignetted effect. Just bring that down around the bottom ever so slightly, and then just drop that brush size a little towards the top. Keep painting along there, and that's dealt with those checkers nicely. What we can also do is just bring the brush size up again a little, just using the right square bracket key there. Drop the opacity again, a bit like we did when we used the layer masks, down to about 20%. And then I'll just kind of further paint in along the bottom there, just kind of sweeping that vignette effect around. Okay, so that's our creatively lit still life image almost complete. The last thing I want to do to the picture is just apply a little bit of extra sharpness, and to do that I am finally going to have to flatten the image. So if there are any other changes you want to make to your lighting using either the eraser tool or the layer masks, you need to make them now before we come up to Layer and down to Flatten Image. And once that's all been crunched into a single layer, we'll just come up to Filter, down to Sharpen, and pick Unsharp Mask from the list. And because I think we want our sharpness to be focused on the bear here, I'll just click the preview over his eye, and setting an amount of about 100%, a radius of 1 pixel and a threshold of 0 levels should do nicely there. Just click OK to apply that sharpness, and we're all done. We've got a dramatically lit still life image thanks to those separately illuminated exposures. We've blended them all together using the power of the layers palette and blending modes, and we've seen how Photoshop can be used in a subtle way to add creative effects to your pictures. So give it a try with the practice images, that's bear1 to 7.jpg, and then try out the technique with your own still life setups, because the results are definitely worth it. See you next time.